Chair.
Mr Chairman.
Honourable Michael Morris Williamson.
Mr Chairman, I'll take a brief call just to answer some of the issues that Honourable Phil Goff and David Shearer have raised. First of all, I've got to be careful because a lot of what they raised is not actually part of this bill. This bill is about implementing the law around how people can be registered for systems and so on. This is not about the contractual obligations for implementing a computer system. But I do want to give those members some assurance along the way. First of all, if you're going to start a comparison between the Joint Border Management System and NovaPay, my view is that comparison is best for the audience out there. You're building one huge big manufacturing processing plant compared to buying a carport, because this is an enormous system across a whole range of government agencies with moving parts, with functionality that will be rolled out in tranches, always was planned to, will take some years, as already has done, to get operational. And I gave the Customs Service and, in fact, the whole implementation crew some very strict instructions that I'd be allowed to as Minister, because I can't get involved in the contractual obligations. That's between the Ministry and the suppliers. But one of the things I said, and I think this was the case with NovaPay, I did not want to pull the plug on the old system until all of the functionality had been tried and trued and had been used for some time. And that is still the case. CUSMOD still runs today, still functions, and some people are still on it. But we are migrating people across quite rapidly. We'll have trialled some of the biggest of the cargo operations out there, from Mondial and CargoWise and FedEx and so on, who have been involved in trialling Trade Single Window, and they love it. So unlike other computer systems where you'll hear from the users, this is a dog and you shouldn't have it and we don't like it and it's not working, I challenge members of the House to find anybody who is involved in the use of it who don't like it and love the speed that it processes at it. But again, if you're building some massive big warehouse operation, you will know for sure before you start there will be elements of it that don't quite work to start with. The big roller doors jam and need the motors changed, or the conveyor belts are not fast enough, or whatever, the temperature of the air conditioning. And the same thing applies to this system. Because it is so big, defects will by definition occur as you start to begin the testing phase of it. Now, I've been around the computer industry long enough to know that's always the case. Trialling big computer systems, as I did in my job before I came here, we always ran the duplicate system on another machine. If it wasn't working on the night we switched over, we flicked back to the old one. So some assurances that members need. Yes, there's been a little bit of creep in the budget, but that's because we've sought for two major modifications. Two variations on the contract of additional stuff. And that's because if you are developing a system over the years that we are taking to develop this big system, you know that your requirements when you set out will have changed over time. And one of those is to bring us into line with the World Customs Organisation WCO3 data model, and we've asked that was a variation of contract that we negotiated and so on. So let me give Phil Goff and other members of the House a little bit of surety here. The vast bulk of the system is working well. The defects are being managed and being identified as to what they are and being fixed as we go to a point that I think is acceptable. There is a contractual obligation that was well negotiated at the beginning of this process between the suppliers and the government agencies that contracted to it, and people can be held to account for it. And no, we are not scaling back expectations. No, we are not. In a whole range of the facilities that are yet to come in Tranche 2, we expect that the contract is well written and they'll be delivered, and there will be, as always in any big process like this, disputes about the minutiae. But it is not a NovaPay. It is most certainly not an INSIS where over the thick end of 100 million was delivered and nothing came back. This system is working well. Go and talk to. I'm happy to give members the names of a number of the cargo operations out there who love it. In fact, I've been to dinner with a few of the chief executives and they're screaming about getting more of the tranches delivered quicker because they can't wait to come into the new world. But I don't believe I need to carry too much of this debate because it's not part of the legislation. And the second thing that I think members raised is, are we cutting back on biosecurity at the border? That is most certainly not part of this legislation. And I suggest members take that up by way of question time or select committee with the Minister for Primary Industries and so on. Nothing about biosecurity staffing and operational at the border is to do with this legislation.
Stephen Browning.